Welcome back, everyone. Ready to dive into something kind of mind-blowing.
Always up for that.
We're tackling Dr. Joe Dispenza's Breaking the Habit of Being Yourself today. The whole idea of our thoughts shaping reality. It's one of those things I'm equal parts fascinated by and, well, a little unsure about.
Yeah, it can feel pretty out there,
Right.
which is what's so interesting about Dispenza. He doesn't just throw out these big, think positive statements. He digs into the actual science, the neuroscience, the nitty-gritty of how our thoughts physically impact us.
So let's break that down a bit. Where do we even start with this whole thoughts shaping reality thing? Because honestly, it can sound a little too good to be true sometimes.
Exactly. And Dispenza's not saying it's some magical manifestation trick. It's more about understanding the power of our habits specifically, what he calls the habit of being ourselves. Basically, our brains develop these neural pathways based on our recurring thoughts, our feelings, how we react to things.
Right. So if we're always stressed out, thinking negatively.
Our brains literally become wired for those outcomes. It's like we're programming ourselves for those experiences, even if, consciously, we want something totally different.
And that's where it gets kind of wild, right? It's like we're unconsciously dictating our reality.
You got it.
Yeah.
But here's the good news. Just like any habit, you can change it. Dispenza talks about things like gratitude practices. Those have actually been shown to shift neural activity, kind of like rewiring your brain for a more positive outlook.
So instead of just wishing for things to be different, we can use these tools, these practices to actually build new pathways that support what we want.
Exactly. And that's what's so empowering about this whole concept. Dispenza gives us this framework, this understanding of how our minds work, so we can start making choices that actually align with our goals.
One of the things that really resonated with me, and this might be a bit embarrassing to admit given my line of work, was the emphasis on single tasking. Like, I am the queen of trying to do a million things at once.
Oh, tell me about it. Multitasking is almost a badge of honor these days. But the reality is, it's not really doing us any favors.
Right. And Dispenza talks about that too.
Yeah, he, along with a ton of research, really highlights how constantly switching between tasks, it actually makes us less efficient in the long run. More mistakes, more stress.
It makes sense when you think about it. Our brains aren't wired to focus on like 5 different things at once effectively.
Exactly. And by trying to force it, we end up working against our brains instead of with them.
So for someone listening, maybe someone like me who really struggles with that, with staying focused on one thing, where do you even start to break that habit?
Dispenza has some great strategies, but I think it all begins with awareness. Just start by noticing when you're tempted to multitask. What's triggering that urge? Is it a sense of overwhelm? Boredom? Or maybe even this feeling of importance that comes with juggling a million things?
It's like catching yourself in the act, right? Becoming aware of those patterns.
Exactly. And then instead of just automatically giving in, you can make a conscious choice. Like just that pause, that moment of, okay, what would it look like to give this one thing my full attention? Could be huge.
It's about creating that space to make a different choice.
Yeah.
So single tasking, definitely key. But Dispenza also talks about other practices, like meditation.
Yeah, and it's interesting, right? Because I think a lot of people, they hear meditation and they think, oh, that's just for relaxation. But Dispenza really emphasizes the transformative power of it.
Absolutely. He talks about how it cultivates self-awareness, which makes sense. If we're trying to shift these ingrained patterns, we have to be aware of them first.
Exactly. And the cool thing is, there's actual research showing that meditation, especially if you do it regularly, it can actually change the structure of your brain.
Whoa, really? So we're literally rewiring ourselves.
That's what it's looking like.
Ah.
Especially in areas of the brain that have to do with focus, regulating your emotions, even compassion.
It's like a workout, but for your brain.
Totally. Which brings us to another really interesting point from the book, replacing limiting beliefs with empowering ones. It sounds amazing. But how do you actually do that?
Right. That's the million-dollar question. It's like, okay, great idea in theory, but in practice.
Well, Dispenza has a two-pronged approach. First, you got to become aware of the negative self-talk. What are those thoughts that just keep popping up, especially when you're challenged or trying something new?
So it's about really tuning into those inner voices, the ones that might be holding us back without us even realizing it.
Exactly. And then once you're aware of them, that's when you can start to counter them.
Right.
Consciously replacing those negative thoughts with positive affirmations that support what you want to believe.
So say someone's struggling with a belief like, I'm not good enough. Would they then try to replace that with an affirmation like, I am worthy and capable or something like that?
Exactly. And I know it can feel a little weird at first, like almost like you're trying to convince yourself of something you don't truly believe yet.
Oh, totally. Because it's like, if you've been telling yourself that negative story for so long, it's almost like your brain's used to it.
Right. It's become a habit. So you're basically trying to break that old habit and create a new one. And just like with any habit, the key is repetition.
So the more you can repeat those new empowering beliefs, even if it feels a little forced at first, the more your brain starts to rewire itself.
Exactly. You're creating new neural pathways, just like we were talking about with single tasking.
Hmm.
And eventually, those new beliefs, they start to become more ingrained, more automatic.
It's like you're literally retraining your brain for success one thought at a time. And this is where things get really interesting because Dispenza takes it a step further and starts talking about quantum physics. Okay, this is the part where I have to admit, things get a little fuzzy for me.
Yeah, it can be a bit mind-bending for sure.
So for those of us who aren't like quantum physicists, can you break it down in a way that won't make our heads explode?
I'll do my best. Okay, so basically, quantum physics suggests that reality, like at its core, it's not actually made up of solid matter. It's more about energy and vibration.
So instead of picturing like a world made of solid objects, we're talking about a world made up of like energy waves.
Exactly. And here's the key.
Yeah.
Our thoughts, our emotions, they have their own energy and vibration too.
Okay, I'm starting to see where this is going.
So what Dispenza is saying is that when we focus our thoughts, our emotions on a particular outcome, we're actually influencing this quantum field of possibilities. We're making that outcome more likely to manifest in our lives.
So it's almost like we're sending out these energetic signals that interact with the energy of like the universe.
Exactly. I mean, of course, there are many different interpretations of quantum physics and what it means for us. But this is the concept that Dispenza uses to explain how our internal state can actually influence our external reality.
So it's like, it's not just about thinking positive, it's about like a deeper understanding of how our own energy plays into it all.
Exactly. And,
Yeah.
Dispenza really emphasizes that this isn't about just sitting back and hoping things will change. It's about actively creating a new state of being, like really embodying those feelings that align with what we want.
Which kind of brings us back to those tools and practices we were talking about, right? The gratitude, the visualization. Those aren't just things to make us feel good in the moment. It's like we're actively shaping our reality with them.
You got it. And he's really big on the consistency piece. Our brains, they thrive on repetition. So even if it's just a few minutes every day, those little practices can create huge shifts over time.
It's like that saying, right? What you do every day matters more than what you do once in a while.
Totally. Like even just taking a few minutes to meditate, it can make you less reactive to stress. Or starting a gratitude journal. You start focusing on what you appreciate instead of what's missing. And visualization, spending a little time each day really picturing yourself embodying those outcomes you want, that sends a powerful message to your brain, to the universe, like, this is who I'm becoming.
What I like is Dispenza backs it all up too. He doesn't shy away from the science. He explains how it all works on a neurological level. But he also admits there's still a lot we don't know. And he's not afraid of that unknown.
Yeah, and that's important, right? Because sometimes it's that clinging to the familiar, to our comfort zones, that keeps us stuck.
Totally. It's like being open to that uncertainty, that possibility that we can change and grow in ways we haven't even thought of yet.
That's where the real magic happens.
Mm.
That feeling of like anything is possible.
Absolutely. So for anyone listening, if you had to pick just one area of your life where you'd want to see that growth, that positive change, where would you start? More gratitude, trying out visualization, or maybe diving deeper into meditation. Whatever it is, I think this really highlights that we have way more power than we realize.
100%. It all starts with that one conscious choice, and then another, and another.
Love it. This deep dive into breaking the habit of being yourself has been amazing. If you want to explore more of Dispenza's work, definitely check out the book. We'll link to it in the show notes. Until next time, everyone, keep exploring, keep asking those big questions, and keep believing in the incredible power you have within you.